The New Strategic Selling by Stephen E. Hyman and Diane Sanchez. Picture this. There's a salesman named Ray who's absolutely crushing it. For months, he's been working on this huge deal to sell a high-tech computer system to a major corporation. The guy is radiating confidence, and honestly, why wouldn't he be? He knows everybody who matters. He's out there playing golf with the CEO, grabbing lunch with the department head, who will actually be using the equipment. The purchasing agent who writes the checks, they're practically best friends. Ray's got this deal wrapped up so tight, he's already browsing luxury cars online, dreaming about that fat 5-figure commission check. But here's where it gets interesting. There's another salesman in the mix, a younger guy named Greg from this tiny, no-name company. Greg hasn't even met the CEO. He's never swung a golf club with any of these executives. On paper, he doesn't stand a chance. Ray isn't losing a single night's sleep over this kid. What Ray doesn't realize is that Greg has something special up his sleeve. Not a cheaper price, not some revolutionary product feature. It's something far more powerful. A completely different way of understanding how deals actually get made. Greg just learned this new system, this fresh perspective on selling, that lets him see what's really happening beneath the surface. While Ray's busy high-fiving himself for knowing all the big names, Greg is quietly asking totally different questions. He's not wondering, who seems important? He's asking who actually makes the final call on this specific purchase. And you know what? He finds his answer in the last place Ray ever thought to look. There's this outside consultant named Jeff that Ray completely dismissed as irrelevant. Turns out, this consultant drops two absolute bombs of information. First, for this particular deal, the CEO's blessing means nothing. The real power sits with the division's general manager. All of Ray's CEO connections? Pure vanity. Second bombshell, Jeff is the general manager's go-to guy for anything technology-related, his most trusted advisor. So what's Greg's next move? He doesn't try any sneaky backdoor tactics or play corporate politics. He simply demonstrates to the consultant how his solution perfectly fits what the company needs. Then he does something brilliant. He steps back and lets the consultant pitch it to the general manager. Before long, everyone who actually matters is completely sold on Greg's proposal. Greg drives off in that new car. And Ray? He's left standing there, totally blindsided, trying to figure out what the hell just happened. That story right there? That's everything we're going to unpack today. It's the gap between just working hard and actually working smart. Between knowing people's names and truly understanding the game being played. For years and years, selling was treated like this mysterious art form, this dance of personality, charm, and random luck. Then in 1985, this book, called Strategic Selling, dropped and flipped the script completely. It brought this radical concept to the table. Selling isn't actually an art at all. It's a science. It's a learnable process that anyone can master. Today we're exploring the updated classic, The New Strategic Selling by Stephen E. Hyman and Diane Sanchez. This isn't just another business book collecting dust on shelves. This is the actual playbook that companies like Coca-Cola, Marriott, and Hewlett-Packard use to dominate their markets. Here's my promise to you. By the time we're done here, you'll understand the fundamental difference between amateurs and professionals. You'll walk away with a blueprint for navigating complex situations, not just in sales, but honestly in life itself, creating outcomes where everybody wins, including you. Have you ever been completely lost in a maze? You know exactly where you want to end up, but every path you choose just leads to another dead end, another confusing twist. The ancient Greeks told this incredible story about the ultimate maze, the labyrinth, where this terrifying monster called the Minotaur lived. Anyone who wandered in got hopelessly lost and eventually eaten. Pretty grim, right? But then comes this hero, Theseus, and he's got a strategy. It's so simple it's genius. This princess, Ariadne, gives him a ball of thread. He ties one end at the entrance and unspools it as he goes deeper. After he defeats the beast, he just follows the thread back to safety. In our modern world, especially when we're dealing with big decisions and complicated deals, we're all facing our own labyrinths. Not made of stone walls, but built from layers of people, departments, hidden agendas, and unwritten rules. The authors of the New Strategic Selling make this fascinating argument that this is our new reality, what they call the complex sale. A complex sale isn't about how expensive something is. It's about how many different people need to say yes before anything can actually happen. Selling a dozen basketballs to your local sports shop? Simple. One person makes the call. But try selling 100,000 basketballs to a massive retail chain. Now you've got yourself a complex sale. You need the buyer's approval, then marketing needs to sign off, finance has to run the numbers, the regional manager gets involved. The list keeps growing. Each approval is another turn in the maze. Here's where most people screw up, and it's exactly what happened to Ray in our opening story. They try using old-school tools, charisma, hustle, a polished presentation, to navigate this new landscape. They're essentially trying to fight the Minotaur without Ariadne's thread. These old-school approaches are what the authors call tactics. Tactics are what you do when you're actually face-to-face with someone. How you present, how you handle tough questions, how you deal with objections. Don't get me wrong, tactics matter, but they're completely worthless if you're using them on the wrong person, in the wrong meeting, at the wrong moment. The real secret, the thread that guides you through the maze, is strategy. Strategy is everything you do before you ever walk into that meeting. It's the master plan that makes sure you're having the right conversations with the right people at the right time. Like the authors say, a good tactical plan is only as good as the strategy that led up to it. This is the book's first massive lesson. In our world of constant change, you absolutely must have a strategy first. Whatever skills got you to where you are today won't be enough to keep you there tomorrow. So what does real strategy look like? It's a blueprint, a complete system for breaking down any complex situation, and it's built on 6 key elements. These are your tools for seeing the hidden map of the maze. The first and most critical element is understanding the buying influences. This is where countless people crash and burn. They look at a company's org chart and fixate on titles: Chief Executive Officer, Vice President, Manager. The authors say this is a potentially fatal mistake. Titles don't matter nearly as much as roles. In any complex sale, there are 4 distinct roles being played. And get this, the same person might play totally different roles in different deals. If you can't identify who's playing each role, you're basically flying blind. First up is the economic buyer. This is the person, and there's only one per sale, who has ultimate authority to release the funds. They wield final veto power. They can greenlight something when everyone else is opposed, and they can kill a deal even when everyone else is enthusiastic. They live by the golden rule. Whoever has the gold makes the rules. Their focus isn't the price tag. They're looking at bottom-line impact on the entire organization. They're asking, what return are we getting on this investment? Your job is to find this person. It might not be the CEO. Generally speaking, the bigger the deal, the higher up you need to look. But finding them is absolutely non-negotiable. Second is the user buyer. These are the people who will actually use what you're selling, or they supervise the people who will. Their personal success is directly connected to how well your solution performs. They're asking, how will this actually work for me and my department? You might have multiple user buyers in a single sale, and you ignore them at your peril. If they're not completely sold on your idea, they can sabotage it from the inside, making sure it fails even after it gets approved. You need to make them feel that your solution will genuinely improve their job and their daily life. Third is the technical buyer. These folks are the gatekeepers. They screen out potential suppliers based on specifications. They could be engineers, lawyers, accountants, or purchasing agents. They can't give the final yes, but they absolutely have the power to deliver a final no. They're professional skeptics, literally paid to find reasons why your proposal won't work. Maybe it doesn't meet certain technical requirements, the contract terms are problematic, or the delivery timeline is unrealistic. They're constantly asking, "Does this meet our specifications?" So many salespeople get stuck here, mistaking the technical buyer for the economic buyer, because technical buyers often act like they have final authority. This brings us to the fourth and most unique role, the coach. This is your secret weapon, your personal guide through the maze. A coach is someone who genuinely wants you to succeed in this particular sale and feeds you the inside information you need to navigate the organization. They can tell you who the real economic buyer is, what keeps the user buyers up at night, and what hoops the technical buyers are going to make you jump through. Here's the thing. A coach isn't necessarily your buddy. They're someone who sees a personal win for themselves when you succeed. You don't just stumble upon a coach. You have to develop one. You need to find someone who trusts you, who's trusted by the other buyers, and who actively wants your solution to happen. Identifying these four players is the foundation of your entire strategy. But just knowing who they are isn't enough. You need to understand how they're feeling about the situation. This brings us to the second and third key elements, which are really two sides of the same coin. Seeing reality with crystal clarity. The second element is called red flags and leverage from strength. Here's a mind shift for you. A red flag isn't a problem. A red flag is actually a gift. It's a warning sign, a signal that there's something you don't know yet, or a weakness in your position. Most people see these signs and immediately look away, hoping they'll somehow disappear. But a strategic professional actively hunts for them. An important buying influence you haven't contacted yet? That's a red flag. A new person just joined the decision-making team? Red flag. You're not totally sure who the real economic buyer is? Giant waving red flag. The authors make this powerful point. Finding red flags is actually positive because it helps you identify trouble before it ambushes you. Once you spot a red flag, you don't freak out. You look for ways to address it by using the flip side, leveraging from strength. A strength is any area where you're well positioned. Maybe you've got a rock-solid relationship with a user buyer. Or your product has this unique advantage that a technical buyer absolutely loves. You use that strength as a lever to eliminate the red flag. For example, let's say you can't get a meeting with the economic buyer. That's your red flag. But you might ask your friendly user buyer, that's your strength, to help you get that introduction. You're not just pushing harder, you're using leverage intelligently. The third element helps you decode the psychology of your buyers. It's called the 4 response modes. This is honestly brilliant insight into human nature. The authors explain that people only become open to change, and buying something always represents change, when they see a gap between their current reality and their desired results. No gap, no sale. These 4 modes describe how a buyer perceives that gap. First is growth mode. The buyer sees that things are going well, but they want to do even more or better. They're receptive to ideas that help them expand. This person is relatively easy to sell to. Second is trouble mode. The buyer recognizes that something's wrong. They're experiencing pain, they need help, and they need it yesterday. They're also very receptive to change. But here's the key. They don't want to hear about improvements or optimization. They want to hear about survival. Trouble always trumps growth. Third is even keel mode. The buyer sees no gap whatsoever. In their mind, reality and results are perfectly aligned. They're completely satisfied with how things are. Their motto is basically, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. The probability of selling to someone in this mode is extremely low. Fourth is overconfident mode. This is the most dangerous one. The buyer thinks reality is even better than their desired results. They feel invincible. They're completely closed off to change. Your chances of selling to them are practically zero. Understanding which mode each of your buying influences is currently in lets you customize your approach. You don't pitch a growth solution to someone drowning in trouble. And you definitely don't waste precious time trying to convince an overconfident buyer they're wrong. You wait, because overconfidence always, eventually, cycles into trouble. Now we get to the philosophy that ties this whole system together. The fourth key element is win results. This is what transforms selling from a one-time transaction into a lasting relationship. The authors lay out that there are only 4 possible outcomes to any sale. There's win-lose, where you win at the buyer's expense. You might land the order, but you'll never see repeat business, and you're risking what they call buyer's revenge. Then there's lose-win, where you essentially buy the business by giving away way too much, hoping for future favors that often never materialize. Both of these are fundamentally unstable and eventually degenerate into lose-lose, where nobody feels good about what happened. The only truly sustainable outcome, the only one that builds long-term success, is win-win. This is a genuine joint venture where both you and the buyer walk away satisfied. But how do you actually create a win-win? This is where the authors make a crucial distinction. They separate a result from a win. A result is the tangible, measurable impact your product has on the customer's business. It's objective and corporate-focused. For example, our new software will reduce your shipping errors by 15%. A win, on the other hand, is the personal, subjective benefit that an individual buyer gains from that result. It's intangible and fulfills their personal self-interest. This leads to one of the most powerful ideas in the entire book. Companies get results, but only people win. That 15% reduction in shipping errors, that's the result. But for the user buyer running the shipping department, the win might be that she looks incredibly efficient to her boss. For another employee, the win might be less mandatory overtime, which means more evenings with his kids. But for a third employee, who depends on that overtime pay to make ends meet, that same result is actually a personal lose. You cannot create a genuine win-win by only selling results. You absolutely must understand how each individual buying influence personally wins from the result you're offering. Your real job is to connect your corporate result to their personal win. That's a win result, and it's the actual reason people decide to buy. So now you know who to talk to, how they're feeling, and what a win looks like for them individually. But what if you're targeting the wrong type of customer to begin with? This brings us to the 5th key element, the ideal customer profile. The authors make this eye-opening claim. Up to 35% of the prospects in any salesperson's territory are actually poor prospects. They're either business you'll never close, or worse, business you'll close and deeply regret later. The any sale is a good sale mentality is actually a trap. The ideal customer profile is your filter. It's a tool to help you identify the characteristics of your very best customers, both demographic factors like their size and location, and psychographic factors like their values and attitudes, such as whether they're committed to quality or open to innovation. You create a detailed profile of your hypothetical perfect customer. Then you measure all your current prospects against that profile. This doesn't mean you exclusively work with perfect matches. It means you can intelligently focus your energy on prospects with the highest probability of a win-win outcome. And you can anticipate the challenges you'll face with prospects that are a poor fit. It's about being strategic with your most valuable resource, your time. And that leads us to the 6th and final key element, the sales funnel. This is your system for managing time and territory to avoid what the authors call the roller coaster effect, those brutal swings of feast and famine, where one amazing quarter is immediately followed by a disaster. The cause of this roller coaster is almost always poor time management. Salespeople naturally focus all their energy on closing the deals right in front of them, the best few. When those deals wrap up, they suddenly look around and realize the top of their funnel is completely empty. They've got no new prospects, so they scramble desperately to find new leads, and the whole boom and bust cycle starts all over again. The sales funnel is a framework to ensure you're consistently allocating time to all 4 critical types of selling work. First, prospecting, finding new potential customers in your universe. Second, qualifying, verifying that a prospect actually has a potential need, moving them above the funnel. Third, covering the bases, doing your strategic analysis on the buying influences for opportunities that are in the funnel. Fourth, closing, finalizing all the details for your best few opportunities. The secret is changing your priorities. Instead of working from the bottom of the funnel upward, you work your best few first, absolutely. But then you immediately jump to the top, to prospecting and qualifying, to make sure you're constantly feeding the funnel. This simple shift in priority is what creates steady, predictable business flow and income. And that, ultimately, is what strategic selling delivers. It's not a collection of manipulative tricks or aggressive closing techniques. It's a complete, repeatable system. It's a new way of thinking, a fresh way of seeing the world, not as a battlefield where you're fighting competitors, but as a landscape full of potential partners. It's the thread that guides you through the labyrinth, not by random chance, but by thoughtful design. It's the process that transforms selling from a luck-based game into a professional discipline, allowing you to create predictable success and build relationships that genuinely last. When you zoom out and really look at the new strategic selling, you realize it's teaching something way bigger than just making sales. At its heart, it's a profound lesson in empathy, strategic thinking, and human relationships. The book's greatest strength is how it completely reframes the entire endeavor. It moves away from that old combative model, seller versus buyer, and into a world of collaborative problem-solving. The idea that you should aim for win-win isn't just some feel-good corporate platitude. The authors present it as the only logical, sustainable path to long-term success. What I find most brilliant is the distinction between a result and a win. That single sentence, "Companies get results, but only people win," is genuinely worth the price of admission. It forces you to look past the spreadsheets, beyond the corporate objectives, and actually see the human being across the table from you. It reminds you that every decision, no matter how big or corporate it appears, ultimately gets made by individuals with their own hopes, fears, and personal self-interests. To truly connect with someone and build something lasting, you have to understand what a win actually looks like from their perspective. This lesson reaches far beyond boardrooms. It applies to your family dynamics, your friendships, your career negotiations. Basically anywhere you're trying to align your goals with someone else's. The book hands you a practical toolkit to apply this philosophy immediately. The concept of the 4 buying influences is like getting X-ray vision. Suddenly you can see the hidden power structure in any group, not based on who has the impressive title, but on the roles people are actually playing in the moment. And the idea of actively developing a coach is absolutely a game changer. It's recognizing that you can't succeed in isolation, that you need guides who can provide critical insider information. Actively seeking out and cultivating these guides is one of the most powerful strategies you can use in any field, not just sales. So how can you start applying these ideas today, right now, even if you're nowhere near a sales role? Here are a few simple actions to take. First, for your next important interaction, maybe it's a job interview, a conversation with your parents about your future, or even a group project at work. Try identifying the 4 buying influences. Who's the economic buyer, the person with final say? Who are the user buyers, the people who have to live with whatever gets decided? Who might be a technical buyer, someone who could point out flaws or roadblocks in your thinking? And most importantly, who could potentially be your coach? Who on the inside can give you advice and help you understand the real dynamics? Just thinking in these terms will give you a level of clarity you've probably never experienced before. Second, start practicing the win-result concept. Before you ask for anything, whether it's a favor from a friend or a raise from your boss, pause and ask yourself, what's in it for them? Don't just think about the result, what they get organizationally or practically. Think deeply about their personal win. How does this make them look good to people they care about? How does it make their life easier? How does it align with their personal goals and values? When you can frame your request in a way that clearly demonstrates their personal win, your success rate will absolutely skyrocket. Finally, embrace your red flags. We're all conditioned to be positive, to focus relentlessly on our strengths. But this book teaches a different kind of wisdom. The wisdom of seeing your weaknesses with brutal honesty. For the next week, every time you feel uncertain or anxious about something, don't push that feeling down. Write it out. That's a red flag. Acknowledge what you don't know, where you're blind. Recognizing your blind spots isn't weakness. It's actually the first step toward true strategic strength. That was a summary of The New Strategic Selling by Stephen Hyman and Diane Sanchez. We've explored the main ideas today, but honestly, a summary can only ever be a map. The real treasure gets discovered when you journey through the territory yourself. The true power of this book isn't just in these concepts. It's in the way these concepts gradually start changing how you see every single interaction in your life. This summary is your guide to decide if this book deserves your time. If any of the ideas we've discussed today, the win-win philosophy, the 4 buying influences, the transformative power of a coach, have sparked something in you, I really encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just a learning exercise. It's an investment in a more strategic, more successful, and more collaborative way of living. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this exploration valuable, please show your support by liking this video and subscribing to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next dive into another potentially life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep learning and growing together.